Well, everybody, good afternoon. This is as bad as the after lunch shift. I mean, I got to build on this amazing stuff that Michelle's done. So thank you for that. You've done the intro for me. Love it. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to share with you some thoughts around how to create connectedness. And I feel myself dreadfully disconnected right now. So I'd love to invite you, please, will you come closer to me? I really need for you to do this because we have to feel what this action feels like. I'm inviting you, please come and invade my space down here, and I'd love for all of you to do that. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for taking that decision to bring yourselves a little closer to the front. I appreciate it very much because what I've just asked you to do is one of the things that's required in creating connection and connectedness is to step out of your comfort zone. You were all very comfortable there. We all have habits, yeah? So there are things we always do. Some of us like to sit in the back row. Some of us like to be right in the front. Some of us don't actually want the facilitator to notice us. But the bad news for you is that I have eyes and ears everywhere. There's some people here who I've met recently in a room, and they'll tell you. So, thank you for coming a little closer to make my connection with you a little bit easier. Because if you didn't do that, what we would have had here is a situation where I was here and we were nowhere. Now look how simple that thing that just happened there was. We have taken illness and turned it into wellness. And do you see what makes the difference? All of us together. Okay? So now can we just think about those moments for ourselves when we feel connected or connectedness? Can you think about what those feel like for you, where you are when that happens for you? When you feel connection, where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? Any offers?
You're amongst people.
You're amongst other people, yes. Yeah? What are you doing?
Things I like.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Conversation.
We're exchanging energy, actually. Often that's what we're doing. Often we're out in nature. Communing with nature, we call it. There is something so healing and so vital about us as human beings being in nature. So we all have a special place we go, maybe to get our energy levels up. We have special things we do to get our energy levels up. Because actually, when we get to be where we are, in our careers, in our lives, and in our life stories, many, many, many pieces of us have fallen off along the wayside. And your energy often has gone along with that. Some of the decisions that you've taken over time has resulted in you being somewhat diminished. And we can often convince ourselves to do these things for all the right reasons, but boy, do they strike out in the execution. And they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah? Now imagine if we let ourselves often fall into those traps. Imagine what it's like when you're leading an organization and you have 30 odd, not odd people, but 30 plus other people that you are in relationship with and that you are responsible for. And in fact, this can happen with them also. So just think about how you feel when you feel disconnected. Yeah? In fact, your circle was wonderful, Michelle, because that circle, some of those automatic things that we have, are the things that create loads and loads of disconnection for us. We have stories about ourselves and about how other people experience us. And we believe those things, and we've had no way of testing whether those stories are actually true and whether they are valid. And because we haven't had feedback or any information to the contrary, we keep doing those things that don't serve us. So I want to ask you just for a moment to think about the one thing that you know gives you energy. Just think about it for a moment. What is that? Do you want to write it down on your piece of paper, please? What is that thing that gives you energy? Is it a complicated thing? So Lillian, you said it wasn't complicated. What is it for you?
Loved.
Yes. Wow. Did you all hear that? Yeah? When Lillian feels loved. Andre, what is it for you?
My motorbike ride.
Yeah. When the wind's going through your hair, Andre. I mean, I'm feeling that feeling for you. And did you see what happened to Andre when he told us what it was? Yeah? Lillian, did you feel what happened in your body when you told us? Yeah? Yeah? Anyone else?
Family.
Yes, please. Family. Music. Oh, my word. Yes. Music. Yes. Oh, dear. You're one of my kind of people. Oh. So I've got to the point in my life. I'm 48 years old. And I now say to people when I walk into meetings, I'm a hug over handshake person. And they get used to it very quickly. And it's almost feeling for me like people are just waiting for that human connectedness anyway, because in our work we have to get all proper.
Can I share?
Yes, of course, Diana.
At school, I have this where I hug the children. So when I walk across the quad, it's like the hen with all the chicks. At times the teachers say, you are going to push Mrs. Williams over. But it's that power. I get energy from them.
Yes, I do too, which is why I'm a hugger. I steal from everybody all the time.
Yes.
Because to keep at this level, it's like a teapot. When you're pouring it out, and the teachers here in the room, those of you who are still in the classrooms and those of you who are in the administration wing, you know, you're pouring. And who's filling you up from the other side? And Michelle said it, and so did the prof say it earlier, that we have to learn to be selfish. We have to start to find ways that allow us to be better prepared, better enabled, more full, to show up fully present. And the word I used earlier was this. Because the stuff that we do, and what we even heard from Michelle today, was it's stuff we already know. But life gets very busy, and we have to find ways to remember. And I write this word specifically like this, re-member. We have to find those other bits and pieces of ourselves that have been extended on behalf of other people along the way and gather them. So that we can wear our own shoes and stand very firmly and very comfortable in our own energy, in our own power. And yet, many of us find ourselves doing exactly the opposite. We're doing the things that don't serve us because we have habits about these things. And so what we have to find time to do is a little talk with ourselves. Because no one else is going to be able to help you. It's been incredibly inspirational hearing some of the tools and having to work out a process of what to do. But we still have to do it. We have to make that decision to do it. Okay. So it's very easy to say. Yeah? So ask yourself, those things that I love, those things that make me feel connected, how much time am I spending being in those kinds of situations? And how much time am I spending in the kinds of circumstances and situations that actually do not serve me and in fact sap my energy? I'm looking around the room, you're all going, You know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know, we're adults, we already know. So what are we doing about remembering? How are we finding the opportunities to reconnect with ourselves and craft more reason and opportunity to do those things that give us energy. Now, we often don't have a lot of choice about this, but it's, as Michelle said, it's those little things, those small milestones that eventually allow you to chip away at the things that sap your energy. I heard of a couple who were going to marriage counseling. So the pastor sat them down, and I'm using an example, by the way, that's far out of our schools. Far away from our schools. I'm not an expert in the classroom, so I'm going to talk a little bit closer to my own life. So this couple goes, and they go to marriage counseling. And when they tell the pastor what's going on in their lives, they're talking like this, you know. They're just downloading and dumping all that stuff. And the pastor says to them, okay, let's just take this slower. Can you say it again? So they say, well, actually, this is what our life looks like. In the mornings, we're getting up very early, and the wife has to get the children ready for school, and then we've got this extra one that came later, the laatlammetjie, and now there's a whole new dynamic around that, and I have to be at work at 8 o'clock, and my wife, thank goodness she works for an understanding boss, they allow her to start at 9 o'clock because she has to do all this other stuff. And then on, like, Friday nights, we think to ourselves, yay, the week's over, we can just chill by ourselves. And then the phone rings, and somebody says, come over for a braai. And then we pack up the kids, and then we go again. And then Saturday morning, we're going off, and we're finding plants because the child has got a project at school, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and my hair must be done, and my nails must be done. And then in the afternoon, there's rugby, and maybe that's my own time as the husband that I can be on my own. I don't know where the wife's gone, but I just know it's quiet in the house. But I know I need that. Yeah? And Sunday happens, and, you know, some of us go to church, and some of us go to play sport, or some of us go to do shopping. We do what we do. And then, boy, oh boy, Monday it just starts again. And the pastor said to this couple, now that's interesting. You're telling me all those things that you don't like, and you're spending 100% of your time doing exactly those things. So can you just imagine what your life would be like if you thought more about the things that you like doing? And so the pastor started working with them around what that was, and it surfaced that, of course, on a Friday night, they like to stay home. It's like they have a ritual that when they were, before they had the children, Friday night was the night when we come home from work, we chill. We would accept engagements on Saturdays. We wouldn't do anything on Sunday except to do things as a family or us together. And slowly these habits form where suddenly you realize you're chasing somebody else's agenda and you're doing things that are not serving you. And you're tired when you have to start the week again on Monday because you haven't taken enough time to revitalize yourself. And we don't have to spend lots of money to do this. And we don't have to do fancy things to do this. We live in the Western Cape. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I can say this with great authority because I travel extensively. This place here offers you whatever it is you need for your soul to be restored. It sometimes means just go and park your car somewhere near the promenade maybe, or near the mountain maybe, or go and listen to music in the local park. There's all sorts of amazing things that happen in Cape Town. So I want to ask you to do one thing for me. I want you to write on your piece of paper, what is the one thing you're going to do proactively around replenishing your energy? And it's not going to cost you money. Because the moment you say, I'm going for a full body aromatherapy massage, you need to save at least 500 Rand. Okay? So commit there on that piece of paper, because you're taking those notes home with you. Commit on that piece of paper the one thing you're going to go and do to restore some vitality and energy. And we're in an educational environment now And we heard the professor had PhDs and lots of degrees. And this is a place of learning, and we are all learning in the education space about ourselves so that we can go and be better at what we do in our organizations. But there is another kind of PhD. You all know that PhD. We talk about it. Some person on your staff maybe, or someone in your family, or someone in your community has a PhD. The pull him or her down qualification. Yeah? So, let's go back to Michelle's model. Because you've all done that, you know, that laugh, which means you know what I'm talking about, okay? Which means you now have an awareness. So you have an awareness that there may be one or two people in your life that are PhDs. They can't see you happy, they can't see you energized, they just want to pull you down, okay? So you've made a little note in your head about the PhDs you might know in your life. You've got the awareness now. What's the next thing that you have to do? You have to, I'm going to go back to your notes. You have to you have to make a choice about that, okay? So if that PhD is sapping your energy, you must decide what you're going to do about it. I always think the most useful thing to do is to engage with that person, because we don't know what their story is, because mostly we don't ask and we don't find out. We don't know why that person behaves like that. And if we remain curious, we can discover some beautiful things about that person that may enrich our lives. But if we've done that and the transformation hasn't happened, then we have to go into saying, okay, I acknowledge that this person makes me respond in this way, and there's not a lot I can do about that because I've engaged and it's not working. How do I let that go? So one of the things I do very intentionally is I start relationships with the end in mind. How would I like that to end? Because we come into each other's lives, not all the time and permanently, and we have to be comfortable to let people go. Because sometimes we get stuck and we hold on to a relationship because this person knew you when you were 12, and now you're 52, and this person and you are no longer the same connected group. But for the sake of that old memory, you're holding on to it, and you're holding on to it tightly. Huh? Look what my hand's doing. It's not good, but if I just relaxed, you know, we're easy about it, she can slip out. And in fact, she's creating space for a new relationship to find us. Okay? So again, think about those relationships that don't serve us. Figure out what you need to do to let them go, and then let them go. I'm never going to forget that pen. And you laugh when I said you start with the end in mind. And it's in my mind because I'm going to be celebrating my 10th wedding anniversary next month. And I'm going to be at the Victoria Falls, and my husband is in Haiti. Yeah? And the funny thing about our marriage was, and we've been together 20 years already, the funny thing about our marriage was, and it was a dreadful conversation for me to have because I'm not like that, but when we started this thing, talking about marriage, I said to him, sweetheart, I know this is horrible and I feel terrible saying this to you, but I'd like us to talk about what happens when we're no longer together. And it sounds like a horrible thing. At the beginning, you just proposed, and now you're making plans, and now you're saying, can we talk about the end? But you know what the wonderful liberation and release about that is that you're not invested then in worrying about that possible future thing that may or may not happen, because you're spending energy on stressing over those things. So my husband and my husband is 15 years older than me, so it was a very relevant conversation, because he might choose to find someone else. I know I've already chosen, it's not happening with me. And so we sat down and we talked about a prenup. It sounds dreadful, but let me tell you, if you put that piece of paper in place to act on your behalf when you can't even talk to each other, and you've done it when you're feeling so in love and so connected to each other, you can already know that the outcome's going to be better. So think about those relationships in our lives that don't serve us. Yeah? And negotiate the letting go for those things. Okay? Because that might be one of those pieces of us that's floating in somebody else's custody, and it should be back with us. Okay. So on a practical note, when we go back to school, back to our staff rooms, we're going to be confronted with what I'm being confronted here with, people. Yeah? And you're going to be probably revitalized and re-energized, and you have to recognize that those people weren't here. So your levels of energy might be an irritation and a problem for the people who are back at school tomorrow, actually, because it's Friday. So maybe you can get away with it a little bit because the energy on a Friday should be a little lighter. Yeah? But to be very mindful when you now go back to work that you don't rain on their parade because they've not been here. And you have to find small ways to introduce your level of revitalization and energy, because in fact they get their energy from you. You are the leader, you are the example. If you're in a bad mood, you talked about mood management, if you're in a bad mood, I can tell you the whole school's going to go, Salvier, ja, ek weet nie wat maak daai hoof oor die naweek nie. Maar as hy maandag by die skool kom, yeah? And so our teams know this about us, and in fact they know you so well that they can already decide which mood you're in when they see you driving into the schoolyard, and they know what to do with that mood. They know how to translate that mood either into benefit for themselves or just a complete disaster for you. And they know how to push your buttons. And this is why you always have to be at your optimal, sharpest possible pencil in the pencil case. Yeah? Because our staff know, and they're just waiting for that moment to show you one. You know what I'm talking about. And that's why we have to keep remembering ourselves, keep gathering back the energy that we had expended. And in fact, didn't you all just have a holiday? Okay, so that brings me to maintenance. That then brings me to maintenance. So you've all got the awareness that you have to, sort yourselves out, take better care of yourself. You've written down the one thing you're going to do to, top up your energy and to revitalize yourselves. But what do we do with maintenance? Because maintenance is not something someone else is going to do for you. You have to do it yourself. It's not like a car that you can take to the experts to service. Huh? So, what do I do to remain at optimal energy and vitality? People often say to me that they don't realize that I'm so old, and I'm not ever sure how to take that. I'm assuming it's a compliment. So I assume positive intent. In fact, before I do that last thing, let me do something about positive intent. Oh, actually, I didn't have to draw. I can just talk. So, we all know in relationships, every now and then there's a moment where something is just slightly off. You can't put your finger on it, but you know it's not right. So let me tell you a story about that so that you can understand where I'm going with this. So, I'll use me as an example. So, I go out to dinner with my husband one night, and we've taken our friend Helene Brandt and her husband out to dinner. And when we pull up at the restaurant and we park the car, I see Helene's pulled up. What is your man's name? Hannes. Helene and two H's. H squared. Hannes and Helene have pulled up. And now my husband's parking the car, but I'm now so excited to see them, so I'm looking. And I notice that Helene's sitting in the car, and Hannes is going around. And he opens her door for her. And I'm having this moment. My husband never opens my door. Mind you, I've never required that, because I'm one of those women. But now I notice Helene's husband opened the door for her, and I feel something. But I don't say anything, because we're out to have a nice night, so I'm not going to be the one that ruins the moment, okay? So I put it away. And tomorrow morning, when he's had his shower, I suddenly notice he's dropped the towel there on the carpet at the end of the bed. And then tomorrow, I notice that the toilet seat isn't down. And before I know it, I'm in the bathroom and I'm seeing, oh my word, the socks are lying next to the wastebasket. And the last straw is when I come to brush my teeth and he has squeezed the toothpaste from the middle. And now I am baie kwaad. And I walk into the bedroom and I say to him, you know, Peter, you never put the toilet seat down. And you never do this. And you always leave your towel at the bottom of the bed, which is true. He always does it, and it's never bothered me before. But because I had that moment of the door opening, and I didn't do anything about it, there was a pinch point in our relationship. And I didn't have the courage to address it and to engage with it. So I let it build up, and then eventually his alles, everything about him is now annoying me, and now I'm having an explosion. And you husbands in the room, yes, yes. Yeah? You recognize this, don't you? You have no idea what you've done. But while I'm doing the you never and you always, I throw in the real thing I'm mad about, and I say, and you know what? You never even opened the door for me. Because now we know what this is about. And my husband, bless his heart, is very sensible. He's an engineer. So he wants me to think about this logically. He sits me down and says to me, think about this logically. And then he goes through the statement. And if I had spoken up when we got home that night and said, you know what, it's so interesting. I just noticed that Hannes opens the door for Helene. I wonder what it would be like on occasion if you open the door for me. You leave the door open for him. It's a choice, it's an option. Because you've made him used to not opening the door for you, okay? And so, my husband, this is a real story, by the way. When I eventually had the courage to ask about that, he said to me, but my sweetheart, with women like you, it's very difficult to know what to do. And that created an opportunity, and he was very wonderful. He's lived with me long enough to know some of the tools. So he did an appreciative inquiry. He said to me, so say more. How would you like this to be? And he did the whole thing. I was being facilitated. But the outcome of that was that he said, well, my sweetheart, I would love to open the door for you, but I've actually always been so scared. Because you're so fiercely independent. And he says to me, and now that we're having this conversation, I want to tell you the reason why you didn't go to see the gorillas with me in Ghana and Uganda was because I struggle to simply be a man to your woman. And that's really powerful stuff around energy. Because it knocked me thinking, oh my word, I have made this man that I love so deeply feel this way. And you don't mean it. And so he's been, okay, not too sure what to do, and we've been together 20 years. This is a recent story, by the way. Okay? So with our teams at work, can we think of those moments where we have seen a pinch point happen, but we haven't had the courage as a leader to go and have a quick conversation? And a quick conversation with what I call soft eyes. You know, not the death stare eyes. We all know how those, none of us want people to talk to us like that. But just soften your eyes. You just relax your eyelids. It's something you learn when you present television. Because if you look at the television screen like that, you're going to frighten your viewers. So you have to just learn to just have your eyelids sort of halfway. It's fine. It's a nice soft eye, and you'll be amazed at how soft the eyes are that come back at you. And then the energy is right for you to negotiate a really, really, really tough thing. Okay. So let's deal with those pinch points. And the last thing I want to say before I leave you with two things to do is that the world is so full of conflict and so full of negative energy, and if we allow it, it will impact us. And so one of the things that I would recommend we try to become skilled at is to assume positive intent. Now, I know people don't like to use the word assume. You know where I'm going with this. Yeah. Yep. But I'm going to translate that into something useful. Let's assume positive intent. And what do I mean by this? We're often so busy working in the transaction that we forget about the relationship. And the person who comes to us with something to do is often also very busy. And so sometimes they'll come in and say, hey, Sadiq, blah, 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 blah. And for you, when somebody steps into your space, it's very important for them to say, hello, Sadiq. Good morning, Sadiq. So the moment they've skipped that step, you're somewhere else in that circle that we had earlier, okay? And we all recognize that it's not useful. We have to say, so what do I have to do to change the outcome that's going to happen here? Because my reaction is to kick them the heck out of my office and tell them to come back when they've learned some manners. But we can't do that. We have to be useful in this world, and we have to find ways to enable people to be in relationships with us that are good for all of us. And so, what do we do with that? We assume positive intent. And we assume that that person is actually so hectically busy, and this thing that they're doing is so urgent that they can't, for a moment, think about saying good morning to me. And for now, it's okay. But I will find another time to have that conversation when it feels for me like they're not under such pressure. Because if you now talk back to them in that moment and you're not doing the thing that they're asking you to do, you're going to cause more trouble for yourself than if you just let that moment pass. But it's not about leaving many of those moments together, because then you end up having those pinch points and then you're freaking out. But create the opportunity to go and have those useful conversations with people to say, you know what? It's very important for me when you come here to my space to just simply say good morning. I really need that. I need that for my well-being. For me, because good morning in other languages, namaste, I see you. That's all we're asking for, each of us. And when people, without thinking, do that, they're saying, you're not important, I don't see you. And so if you know what that feels like for you, just remember that often we do that to other people as well. So start to negotiate and create the things you need to build those connections. And the last two things I want to leave you with is practical advice from my own life. I do two things every day. And that's my way of being in the world. The first thing is a question. So I want you to make a note there to put down question. Just put down the word question. Because you're going to have your own when you leave here. You're going to take everything you've heard from Michelle and some of the random conversations you and I have had, and you're going to put them together tonight when you're reflecting. Because that's a practice leaders must all have. Okay. And the second thing you're going to write down there is intention. So for me, I wake up every morning with a question, and it's the same question every day. And my question is, there's some of you who have been in my rooms before. My question is, who am I going to find to fall in love with today? Just for the record, here we are. Simple question, who am I going to find to fall in love with today? And I use those words love very intentionally because I want my heart to speak to your heart. We have too many other heads speaking to each other, and we've learned from Michelle that our heart is way more powerful than the connectivity in our brain, the connections in our heart. And so if you step into that heart to heart space with that question, that curiosity about who will it be today? As I say, what's this? 60-odd people? How fabulous. You can tell what's happening for me. I'm just like, yes. In fact, I've just had goose flesh. Oh, and I'm still having it. Because that's what happens. Our bodies will talk back to us. It'll tell you when you're well. I'm fabulous right now because I've just made that connection. And the second thing, which is our intention. For me, my intention every day is to show up as the very best version of myself. And then to see what happens. Because who we are and how we show up in the world and our energy levels And our sense of vitality, our sense of well-being, directly impacts what happens. This morning I had a client, and I had to go and do some very serious work with them. And I got stuck in the crazy traffic this morning. I was half an hour late for a client. And I just stopped outside the client's door, and I said, I need to remind myself of my question and my intention. And that's what I did. And the session was absolutely fabulous. I came from them right straight here to you. So I want to go invite you all the time to craft these strategies for yourself. So will you find your question, work it out for yourself. I'm lucky that my question has remained the same for a long, long time, but it can change. And craft your own intention. And you don't have to tell people that. You just have to be that. Because no one now knows, and they can't judge you, and they can't criticize you, and they can't say, oh, but Wilfred, you weren't being your very best self today. They don't need to know that, okay? So this is where it comes back to what the Prof said earlier and what Michelle was saying around taking care of yourself. And to be intentionally selfish about what makes you well. And then step into those spaces. Step out of your comfort zones, because it's hard to get these new habits. We all want to sit in the back of the class. Many of you didn't today. And just try it again next time when you're in a lecture room. Go and be so close. Look, Sadiq is right here. I've just touched my energy with his. Huh? You never know what could happen when you offer yourself the opportunity to show up in a different way. That's probably more useful for you. So thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. I just want to say it's such a privilege. And I want to say to Samantha that I love these invitations, and I love being asked to hang with my tribe, because educators made a difference in my life. Education changed my life, and it's one of the reasons why I'm deeply, deeply privileged to work in education with all of you who are actually doing the real work in education with our children. Thank you very much.